Hello and welcome everybody to LetsTalkStudioz, the podcast studio where we talk about anything and everything, no strings attached. On today's episode, we're going to be breaking down some interesting topics and some very interesting subjects that we know of that have been commonly trending these past couple of weeks. And one of them being the recent comment that was made by the United States President Donald Trump, where he talked about Lesotho being the unknown country. Right, so we're going to be discussing some of such factors, and then we're going to be debunking some of the theories that were established and some of the comments that were made. And besides talking about the comment that was made by Donald Trump, we're going to be talking about our current relationship with South Africa and yes, just us and South Africans, the relationship. Because there was a video that I published a while ago that I uploaded on my personal YouTube channel. By the way, today, for some of you guys who already know me, that's good. But for those of you guys who don't know who I am, my name is Mpitin Chapi, and I am a young YouTuber / streamer / podcaster residing in Lesotho, the unknown country. And before we begin the video, yes, it is an existing country. I did a while ago upload a video on my personal YouTube channel, Mpitin Chapi. You can go check it out because I dropped a short version of it and I made a long video of it. It went crazy. People were having a very wonderful debate about these issues. There was a lot of debate amongst South Africans and Basotho. And it was a wonderful thing to see that people take pride in their individual countries and people are well aware of the current issues that affect all the individual countries. It's a wonderful thing when citizens are loyal citizens of their own countries. Right. Now, on today's episode, we're going to be discussing 3 ideas that have been on my mind, and I decided why not make an episode about it to begin this podcast with. So number 1, like I mentioned, we're going to be discussing the recent comment that was made by President Donald Trump. I'm not going to make a video about it because this has been going on for weeks. So if you're not well aware of this video that I'm talking about or this press that he made, then it says you need to start being aware of your surroundings and what happens in the news, right? Even if you don't watch the news. So we're going to be talking about the comment that Donald Trump made, and then we're going to talk about the relationship of South Africa and Lesotho. And then we're going to be talking about something, unfortunately, that is not of good news, but it's going to be helping us to make a better reference to what I'm going to be talking about. Now, like I said, before we begin this episode, I'm going to ask 3 questions that I hope Basotho and South Africans will be able to. This is a question to think about for both Basotho and South Africans. Number 1, Basotho people, my people, do we want to join South Africa as the 10th province? You'll give a reason in the comments for why you want us to join South Africa and why you don't want us to join South Africa. And now a question to South Africans. Do you want Lesotho to be a part of your nation, or do you not want it to be a part of your nation? So while you guys think of that question, let's go ahead and begin the podcast or the episode. All right. So what I'm going to be talking about in relation to Donald Trump's comment or video that was made on his press release is not going to be very long because I did already expound on it and I did elaborate more on it on the previous video that I made. But for those of you guys who did happen to see the video, there were a lot of inputs, there were a lot of thoughts, there were a lot of impressions about that statement that was made. And I happened to have taken my time to really think about this video. And the previous video, the long form video that I made, I feel like I didn't really give that much information about this matter as a Mosotho. I feel like it was more of an introduction, or it was more of an overscaling of the whole issue. I didn't really get into depth on the whole issue. So I feel like this time around, I can do a better job to really give my side of the story as a Mosotho, a proud Mosotho, what I think about this matter. Okay, number 1. When I first came across the video of Donald Trump, I think I was a little bit pissed off But I did happen, prior to making this episode, I did happen to sit down with a few people, and we had a discussion and some talks about what do they think about this matter, and it was able to give me a clearer perspective about what I could also think about this situation. All right. Number one that I picked up about this whole thing, that I don't know if I want to elaborate that much on it, but I feel like in a not so obvious way, Donald Trump made Lesotho famous. Because every single video or anything on social media that is flagged with this, or the topic is about Lesotho, or anything that is in relation to Lesotho, a lot of people want to be part of that discussion. Meanwhile, we are that unknown country. But I feel like Donald Trump he did something. I think for some of us, we might look at this issue like it's something bad, especially for us Basotho. Because I was talking to somebody else, and I was telling him about how sometimes being a mystery or sometimes being unknown comes with its own peace. It brings its own sense of peace, where it's, nobody bothers you, nobody interacts with you, nobody knows you even exist. So in that way, it brings its own peace. So that was the situation with Lesotho. Now Donald Trump mentions the country, and this brings me to point number 2 about this whole issue, that it seems this $8 million was to be sent here in Lesotho, apparently for LGBTQ whatever. And now that I had time to really ponder this situation, it gave me a moment to reflect on that matter and the fundings and everything. That when President Donald Trump opened his statement, he said we should take note of some of the appalling wastes. So him mentioning the $8 million bill was categorized under waste. This is the one point for Basotho le Tlanswarela. You will forgive me for what I'm about to say, but I feel like I have to say it because this might open up a new can of worms. And I feel like I do want to open up that can, because this is how we grow and learn. That's a bar. That I feel like it is actually a waste. Why would you want to spend $8 million? Keep in mind, this is still in dollars. Now, when we convert that money into luti or maluti, that is way too much money. That's approximately 3 billion maluti in Lesotho. For what? For people who are not certain about their gender, for people who want to switch themselves, for people who are confused at where they stand in the world. You want to send I think it's around 3.6 billion for that. Our country has, I think each and every country has its own faults. I think, let me say, each and every one of us we have our own political problems. We have our own affairs as individual countries. A few that I can mention with Lesotho is our roads are not so good. Whether it be in the villages, in the city, wherever, our roads are not so good. We have way too much land that is unused, right? With the 3.6 billion, there could be so much transformation that could take place in this country, as opposed to that money being spent on LGBTQ. We could spend that money on so many other better things to improve this country. So on that idea, on that second point, I think I'll take this opportunity to say I support Trump in that. It's a waste. It's a waste. And I wanted to make a clear reference with some of the examples that I saw under the previous video that I mentioned that I did upload on my personal YouTube channel. So we're going to be answering some of the questions that I did find under that video that I made. So we're going to be making reference and answering some of the questions that I found under that video. And it's going to help us better understand this situation, because honestly, these are the opinions of Basotho. These are the opinions of South Africans on this matter. So I want us to read some of these comments down here. Now we're going to be making a reference with some of these. Okay, number one. This is by Tepeletsek. I think he's a Mosotho. I don't know. But Tepe said, "Believe me, Lesotho does not want to go to war with South Africa if we want it to continue to exist." If I could advocate for war and for fightings and for the military being involved, not every single situation needs to be solved with violence, but if it has to get to that point in order for us to reach a point of peace, then I think it should be that way. This is why we have the military in the first place. That's why we have a Ministry of Defense. It's because it's for such things, so if it has to go to war, then it will go to war. But I don't think genuinely it's supposed to get to that point where now we get wars and people now are fighting. People have to be killed because there's been this ongoing debate of a matter concerning Lesotho going back to fight for its rightful or birthright land, if I could say it like that. Apparently, because of our history with Basotho and South Africans, it seems there is a fraction of land that is possessed by South Africans that Basotho, or we as a Basotho nation, believe it's supposed to be part of Lesotho, not South Africa. And one thing that has always been an observation with this whole land and everything else is, I don't know what we're going to be doing. Okay, let's say if we do happen to get that land from South Africa and then it's owned by Lesotho. Since this has always been a debate that's been going on between the citizens of Lesotho rather than the government or Ministry of Lesotho, I don't know what the plan would be with that excess of land, because we already have our own fraction of land that is unused, that is left untouched. So I feel like, I don't know, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing to want what's, so to say, rightfully yours, if I could put it like that. But what are we going to do with that land if we so get it? Let's say they give us the Ladybrand fraction, and then we extend Lesotho to Ladybrand, and then we remove that border, and then we just put it on the other side of Ladybrand. What are we going to do with all of that land there? Because it's owned by some Basotho. Well, let me not say the land is owned by some Basotho. The commercial properties there are owned by some Basotho and then some South Africans. What's going to happen to those people? So we're going to take out those South Africans, and what's going to happen? It's going to be a very long debate, which is why I say I don't want to stick too long on this matter, because most of the ideas that I'm discussing at the moment is some opinions that were given by Basotho and some opinions that were given by South Africans. Until this matter is discussed by government officials or just the ministry, then I don't think it's a topic that I'm going to be touching so much on. But personally, coming from me, I don't really care whether or not we get that land, because honestly speaking, Lesotho, with or without that land, is a wonderful country. It's a very peaceful country. So I feel like I wouldn't mind the war, but at the same time, there's so much peace without us fighting for that land, I think this is a black people thing. I don't know. Let's give it alright? But I feel like we have so many better things as communities, as nations, as countries that we could be focusing on as opposed to fighting for land. Because this is why I ask this question. After Basotho attains that land, then what? Then what happens to that land? Or is this an idea of just chasing for superiority in terms of countries, or going out for power, or just owning a lot of acres of land for no reason, So I feel like it's a matter that I don't know. I don't want to get that much involved with, because it wasn't part of this podcast. But, it's one of those affairs that have to be part of the discussion, because this is me tapping into our relationship with South Africans, right? So now, somebody else made a comment that I want to highlight on, or give my thoughts on, So somebody else gave another comment. It's DJVA82. This was This was 4 days ago when he made this comment. So he said, he wonders what Lesotho leadership did. Okay, this is in relation to the 8 million, right? So he was talking about, he wonders what Lesotho's leadership did with that money. The president bought another Maybach. Well, this is where I corrected him that in as much as all these other countries have presidents, we don't have a president. That's another thing that perhaps I could extend to people who know nothing about Lesotho, that we don't have a president. Our hierarchy starts from, we have a king, right? King Letsie III. And then under him, we have a prime minister, which is Sam Maimane or Samuel Maimane. So we don't have a president. Keep that in mind. And the reason why I think he made this comment is because there's been this belief that it seems Lesotho is that corrupt with funds, in a sense that any amount of money that is sent out into Lesotho, whether it be from South Africa or whether it be from any nation or any union, but as long as there's funds being sent to our country, apparently or allegedly there's this concept that the money just disappears without any transformations made, without maybe the allocated agendas being accomplished, but the money seems to be misused. Let me say it like that. Now, this is a very sensitive topic, right? I don't even know if I'm standing at the right point to even be discussing such things. But before I begin to give my thoughts on this matter, I'm going to say Lesotho is not the only corrupt country that you guys know of. For those of you guys who want to believe that Lesotho is the most corrupt nation in the world, then you have the stupidest idea of corruption. If Lesotho is the biggest one on your list or the top one, then you have a very big problem. Okay? So, when I get into this matter, I'm going to say, of course, every single person, community, country, or whatever, has its own skeletons in the closet. And that is the reason why I started with individual, because the government is composed of individuals who have their own skeletons in the closet, right? Those are not perfect people that are put in the government. And yes, I do affirm that sometimes we misuse funds. I've seen it myself. I've heard it myself. I've seen it myself, right? And this is not even me trying to generalize it. I've seen it in my own country that our funds get misused, right? Now, I'm going to support my motion or support my idea with some backed up evidence of what I'm talking about. So there's been multiple funds that were sent into this country, excluding or including the 8 million that Donald Trump talked about. There've been other different funds, and I liked the comment. There was one South African who made a comment that our prime minister is our prime minister is only the prime minister and he's succeeding in his workforce or his work field because of South Africa. Why? Because he mentioned how South Africa has always been supporting Lesotho in generating, let me say 100% or 200% above the country's revenue of Lesotho. So when you look it up online, about how much money actually gets sent from South Africa to Lesotho per year, it's so much money. Now, we're going to talk about it in relation to now what happened to the funds, right? Because, hold on, let me see. All right. So it says, when you look it up online, it said South Africa is estimated to pay Lesotho around $192 million, which is around 180 million pounds, if that's pounds, for water supplied through the Lesotho Highlands Water Project. This is a project that's located in Lesotho, but it's between the relationship of Lesotho and South Africa for distribution of water. Because the dam in which we store or reserve this water body is reserved here in Lesotho, but the water gets transported to Lesotho. I believe one of those projects or big dams is the Katse Dam or Muela, I think, but Muela is more concerned with generation of electricity But I feel like Katse is always been for transporting water. So this is the relationship that the comment was discussing. And if I could quickly find who made that comment, let me see. There was a lot of discussion around here. So much debate between Basotho and South Africans. But besides that, it was made by DJVA82. He said, go look how much money SA gives to Lesotho per annum. It is what keeps that economy afloat. I don't mind it, but important to note. Yes, I do believe it's something very important, because this was new to me. I think I started to take an interest now in journalism, though I know a lot of journalists are killed or die. But I feel like it's one of those things that are fascinating, to really be involved in the affairs of what happens around you and to really know what is happening around you, to stay informed. So I never really knew that this much money was being transported or funded or injected into Lesotho for the water project. This is a lot of money, my guy. This is way too much money. And when you convert this money from rents to lot, my guy, it's a lot of money. Serious amounts of money. So we put in 182 million, right? It's 182 million. Yeah, that's... Oh, wait, hold on. It's supposed to be USD to Ludi. And crazy enough, or funny enough, when you look this up, it says, when you look up how much money sent from South Africa to Lesotho is put in dollars, not in rands. It's a very interesting story, that one. 182. Hold on, my boy. That's a lot of money. That is way too much money to be spent on nothing. Okay, so now I get the idea of why people say we are so corrupt and misusing funds, né? Because the amount of money that we get per year does not reflect in the country that we get this much money. Yes, we see a few projects, and perhaps I wanted to take this opportunity to give a special gratitude to our current Prime Minister, Sam Maimane, because there have been so much undeniable and noticeable changes in this country. I am seeing a significant increase in development and everything else that we've long been asking for as Basotho, or hoping or wishing for. Finally, we see those changes taking place. So honestly, with our bad history of so much corruption and everything, I feel like our current Prime Minister is the first person I've ever taken note of who is really taking a step into making sure that this country is prosperous and we are getting somewhere as an individual country. So thank you for that one, that Dematekane. This is me giving my voice for all Basotho. We notice the efforts you are making, and we are very much thankful for the efforts. But apart from that, this when I first saw these figures of how much money we actually get as a country, and tried to put it on scale with reflection to see this amount of money and this amount of transformation, it doesn't balance. And yeah, honestly, I feel like, I don't know if it's ever going to stop, because I think corruption will always be there. I think it's something that's going to be there forever. Even if we clear out the whole cabinet of Lesotho's government and put in new people, I think it could still be something that further continues. Because imagine where you work, you get a huge sum of like 3 billion. What would you do with it? Because I feel like, I don't know if this is more like for black people, but I feel like whenever money lands near us or in our hands, we start to think of how many problems we have, whether it be our personal affairs, family affairs, work, anything. We start to think of our problems. This is where money gets misused now. We start taking advantage where we shouldn't even be taking advantage. So I'm not going to say yes, I'm not going to say no, but I think my implications say yes, we do misuse this money. Because we can't be receiving 25 million. No, wait, actually not 25 million. 3 billion a year. And then our country is in the state that it's in, right? So, all right. Now I want to move on to probably the last part of this episode or this podcast today. Yeah. I'm gonna talk about something that some of us might be familiar with, or someone that some of us might be well aware of. And this person, I hope I don't. Well, never mind. This person that I'm going to be talking about is someone called Sam, also same name as our Prime Minister, but this one is Samuel Maimane. Apparently, back in around 2017, I believe this was, I'm not sure who was president by then, but I think I'll continue with my research. But there was a sum of money that was sent to Lesotho. I think it was billions of money that was put into Lesotho that was supposed to be allocated for the development of this country. It was a lot of money. When the money was sent, it disappeared. Nobody knew what happened with that amount of money. It just disappeared. But I think with logic and common sense, we know money doesn't just disappear. And I think now with the factor that I've touched on, or the idea that I've touched on with this corruption and misusing of funds, you already have an idea that when I talk about money disappeared. But it was way too much money that it raised a lot of controversy and suspicion. So much so that Samuel, the one I'm talking about, Maimane, was sent in Lesotho to come and investigate the misuse or the malpractice of the funds that were sent into this country. And sadly or unfortunately, they offed him. Now, this is, because of this story, this is where someone under my video commented that I think it was a she, that one of the reasons why Basotho do not want to merge, or South Africans don't want to merge with Lesotho, is apparently they call us murderers. I think there was a woman who made a comment under that video and said Basotho are murderers. I'm just going to say one thing when it comes to that idea, same as corruption. We are not the only people who do that. All right. I think it's so easy for everybody to point fingers, but I like this one concept that I got taught in the military. When you point at somebody, well, this is a very common thing, but I think it was practiced more in there. That whenever you start pointing fingers, always remember that 3 of your fingers are pointing at you. And so for all these countries that can say, this country has murderers, this country has terrorists, and keep pointing fingers, remember that 3 of those fingers, even if you do this, don't try to be funny and start pointing like this. Anybody can just point fingers, but everybody has their skeletons, right? So I'm just going to say whether or not Mimosa was killed in Lesotho or killed anywhere, I know of some of the countries that are very popular at killing people, but I'm not going to mention them because I didn't want to make this episode to fight with anybody. I just wanted to give my side of the story. But if it has to be beef, then it will be beef. But I don't want it to get to that point. But I'm just saying, on the top 10 lists of people or a community or a country that is most popular at killing people, we are not that much at the top. But unfortunately, in this case that we have to be talking about, Mimosa was killed. This was back in 2017. Now I have a statement here for fact checking, so you don't think in the world that's so filled with opinions, I'm mostly going to give my opinions. I made my research. I have my own research. So I'm going to be talking about my own research of facts. So it says, in a deeply tragic event that shook the nation, Samuel Maimane, a respected member of Lesotho's political sphere, was murdered under mysterious circumstances. By the way, with what I've said and what you guys might know or may not know, the mysterious circumstance is already clear on why that happened. Samuel was known for his vocal stance on anti-corruption and political reform in Lesotho. His tragic death, many believe, was linked to the outspoken criticism of the corrupt practices within the government and his efforts to challenge powerful political figures. And just to expound that so much on that, or maybe a bit on that, yes, that is exactly what happens when you go against forces that you're not well aware of, and when you go against certain powers that you don't have that much power to capacitate, if that's the word, yes. And when you go against powerful forces alone, it's not going to be so easy for you to survive. But continuing, it says, while the motives behind his death remain unclear, there are suspicions that his assassination was politically motivated. I do believe so. Maimane's death has raised important questions about the safety of individuals who challenge the status quo in Lesotho, particularly those advocating for transparency and justice. His murder is seen by many as a reflection of the deeper issues surrounding political violence and corruptions within the country. The investigation into his death has drawn attention to vulnerabilities of political activists in Lesotho, and it is imperative that the government takes strong measures to ensure the safety of those who seek to promote political accountability. This is why earlier in the podcast or in the episode I said I don't want to be a journalist, but I do take an interest in journalism, an informal kind of journalism, because it raises my profile to be discussing such things, right? It raises so much, especially mentioning such a name, because I do believe some members of the government know very well who Mimosa was. So me talking about it, and I feel like this being a matter that was laid to rest, and me just uncovering it again, I might start something else. But to conclude this episode, right? I honestly believe this matter. I hope the government takes note of what I'm about to say and tries to do things differently. Because this is me now giving a judgment, well, not even a judgment, but my perspective on this matter of Mimosa apparently disappearing. That whether or not they are aware of it or not aware of it, when you start to have such a debatable or a controversial profile as a country in terms of leadership, it affects not only the image of the country, but it affects all other aspects or interrelations that we have with other different nations. We get fundings from South Africa. We have a linkage or a bondage with Europeans. We have different affairs with different nations. So now as a country, when we decide, and well, this is the reason why I'm saying we, because I'm not going to say the government or Lesotho, what I'm part of this community, so it's only fair I say we. But if the government of Lesotho does not take note of that, it's going to not only ruin the image of this country, but it's going to destroy the already relationships that have been established between Lesotho and other nations. So much so that we're going to get to the point where now certain nations or other resources that we've been working with other countries are going to be withdrawn, including the money that we get for the water projects, including foreign investments and from other countries and everything else. All of those are going to get withdrawn, because the only reason Mimosa was sent to investigate these matters, just that in this statement, it wasn't put about why Mimosa was sent to Lesotho, but he was sent to investigate the malpractice of funds. If this is how investigations go out when Lesotho is to be investigated for certain things, that people disappear, that on its own, I don't need to elaborate, because I do know sometimes I might give off the wrong picture, or I might not justify my clause well enough with words, but I'm just pointing it out that we need to be careful. And this is not even saying it needs to continue, but we need to be careful. No, it needs to stop, actually. Because Whenever you do something wrong, this is basic knowledge, but I don't need to expound so much on this. Whatever happens in the dark will come to light. But I'm saying this is a very bad image for us, in relation to other nations. This is not so much a good image. Now let me know what you guys think of this episode for today. Let me know what you think as Basotho or South Africans. Let me know what you think. And again, remember the questions that I asked previously in the video. Do we want Lesotho and South Africa as one nation? Or do we want to be independent nations and communities? Do we still want Lesotho to remain an independent country that's still landlocked into South Africa, but still independent? Or do we just want to be like any other province? Because apparently there are some South Africans that are comparing us to certain states or provinces in South Africa that apparently we are that small and we could just fuse with them. But there's debate on both sides. It's emotion, some are proposing, some are opposing. So as Basotho and South Africans, where do we stand? Let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.